I'm going to present my screen. Oh, sorry. The check-in question for today is, what bet do Higgins and Pickering make in Act 2? Please answer in the chat. The way that you earn attendance credit is from answering the check-in question in the chat. I'm going to also put this question in the chat. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock. Three minutes. Oops. There are 28 people in this chat. Make sure that I'm having 28 people respond to the check-in question. What bet do Higgins and Pickering make in Act 2? Karen, I see that you've already responded. Thank you for being prompt. Got a minute and a half left. What is the app? What is the bet? What are the things that these two men agree on? In Act 2 specifically. Good morning, Shailin. Here's the check-in question again. It's also presented on my screen. If you haven't answered yet, take a guess. What happens in Act 2? What bet do Higgins and Pickering make? I want to see what you think. If you don't know, I want you to take an educated guess. What do we know about Higgins? Got another 20 seconds on the clock. Remember, actively participating in meets in the morning ensures that your name is documented on the attendance for today. 5 more seconds. All right, that is time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to look at some of our responses. So, Nate, that behavior is unacceptable and not useful in my chat. Please don't do that again. So, Karen says that Pickering will pay Higgins the money if he can make a woman out of Liza in a specific number of months. Carter says Higgins bets that Liza will be able to talk perfectly anywhere in a few months. Lewis says Higgins bets to make a woman out of Liza. Diana says the bet they make is how many months it takes to help Liza. Jay says something similar. Okay, wonderful. So, Justin, you participating actively in the meet will mean that you're documented on the attendance, so don't worry about that. So just to be clear, the bet between Higgins and Pickering is a bet to transform Liza. So Higgins is a speech specialist. He teaches people how to talk in a particular way. Pickering is offering to pay Higgins if he can pull off Liza being a lady at a party. So, Justin, it's not quite to turn her rich, it's to have her appear as though she is of higher status than she is, to talk like a lady, to walk like a lady, to act like a lady at this big fancy party. Okay, wonderful. So now I want to think critically about, does Liza know what she's getting into? So here's the question. Does Liza know what she's getting into? Does Liza understand the bet? So I'm hoping that along with those no's is some evidence or explanation. I see lots of no's. I want to make sure that we are understanding. Okay, so pretty much we all agree that Liza doesn't understand what's actually happening here. So what does Liza think is happening? So what does Liza think is happening? So let me be clear with my question. Provide evidence to support, to explain what Liza thinks is happening. So I want you to be ready to cite some evidence. What does Liza think is happening in Act 2? So if you need to, you should be clicking into Act 2 of the text. If you need me to share that link, I will. Here is the link to Act 2. What does Liza think is happening in Act 2? Jaden has found a strong piece of evidence. Let's see if anyone else can find other pieces of evidence to hint at what Liza thinks is happening. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Make sure you're clicked on my screen. We're gonna look over a portion of Act Two's text that I've already pulled up, and we're gonna talk about what she thinks is happening right after the bet is being made. So right here where it's highlighted, Higgins carried away, this is where the bet is being decided. So Higgins says, yes, in 6 months, in 3 if she has a good ear and a quick tongue. I'll take her anywhere and pass her off as anything. We'll start today, now, this moment. Take her away and clean her, Mrs. Pierce. Monkey brand if it won't come off any other way. Is there a good fire in the kitchen? Mrs. Pierce protesting, yes, but Higgins, take all her clothes off and burn them. Ring up Whitley or someone for new ones. Wrap her up in brown paper till they come. Liza, you're no gentleman. You're not to talk of such things. I'm a good girl, I am, and I know what the likes of you are. I do. Higgins, we want none of your Listen Grove prudery here, young woman. You've got to learn to behave like a duchess. Take her away, Mrs. Pierce. If she gives you any trouble, wallop her. Liza, springing up and running between Pickering and Mrs. Pierce for protection. No, I'll call the police, I will. Mrs. Pierce, but I've no place to put her. Higgins, put her in the dustbin. Liza, exclaiming, ow. Pickering, oh, come, Higgins, be reasonable. Mrs. Pierce, you must be reasonable. Mr. Higgins, you really must. You can't walk over everybody like this. So let's pause there. What is happening? What does she think is happening? Oh no! Was it really frozen the whole time? Could you hear me at least? All right. Sorry, y'all. It happens. All right. So in this portion of the text, Higgins is being very stern. He is demanding Liza around, and Liza's not having it. That's all I wanted to make clear. So what about the text, or what about Higgins and Pickering makes it difficult for Liza to know what's going on? What about Higgins and Pickering conversation makes it difficult for Liza to know what's going on? So what about the conversation between Higgins and Pickering makes it difficult for Liza to understand what's going on? Why is it so hard for her to know what's going on? Why do we know, but she doesn't know? So Carter's saying maybe the language or the way they speak. Why else might she not know? Because they're speaking fast, maybe. Okay, what other ideas do we have? The different perspectives between Higgins and Pickering. Isis, they're not really explaining much. Karen, because there's a difference in language or verbiage. Okay, so let's pause here. So many students have come to the conclusion, and it's a correct conclusion, that the language between Higgins and Pickering is very different from the language that Liza's used to using. This is very likely part of the reason why she's confused, right? There's a portion in the text where Higgins makes a comparison to how much what Liza's willing to pay is like what a millionaire would like to pay, and that it's actually a big deal, right? He's making a joke. He's making a comparison because she can't pay him very much because she doesn't make very much. And she gets all confused and she's like, I can't pay you 60 pounds, right? So he specifically, Higgins, is making jokes and is acting childish and is being sarcastic, and that makes it extremely difficult for Liza to know what's going on. It also can make it difficult for us as readers to understand what Higgins is serious about and what Higgins is just saying to say things. Though many students said it's also the actual words that Higgins and Pickering says. They're speaking very quickly, they're having a conversation with each other, but not really including Liza. That's very true. Okay, we're going to pivot and we're going to think about thematic topics. So originally I was going to share my screen and do a brainstorm, but I don't really want to freeze again. So what we're going to do, we're going to just brainstorm in the chat. What thematic topics show up? Wonderful. Keep brainstorming. You can brainstorm several. That's totally fine. Pause. Many of you are coming up with adjectives. So wealth, right? Or language, right? We've talked about Hezi, and we're not there yet. So we have talked about a lot of big ideas in previous questions. So we're thinking about big ideas that show up. So Leia, can you unmute and explain a little bit? What do you mean to get in your way? Can you explain?
Like when you're manipulating somebody, like you could be, for example, you could be like getting in trouble or something like that, and then you try to like give them reasons or like try to tell them what you were trying to do. That way they will like kind of like feel bad, and then they'll be like, oh,
and then they won't get you in trouble. Exactly. Yes, Leia, good job. So when we're thinking about thematic topics, we got to think about the big ideas, not personality traits for individual characters. It's wonderful that we are already thinking in terms of characterization, because also in today's assignment, you will be characterizing the main characters in Act 2. So we're language, culture, manipulation, money, status, identity, relationships. I'm not so sure about that. We've seen maybe courage. I could see that. All of these are strong in Act 2. So if you are struggling to brainstorm, and now we're going to jump into a review because I want to make sure that we understand. Thematic topics. I'm going to share my screen. Someone unmute and tell me if I'm frozen. Am I frozen?
yeah.
Yes.
Really? Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then I guess I can't do that. That's really frustrating. Okay. So the difference, remember, I'm going to write, thank you all for telling me. I appreciate that. The difference between, oops, 3 E's is not how you spell between, thematic topic and thematic statement Can someone please tell me what is the difference between a thematic topic and a thematic statement? We only got 6 minutes, so it's got to be quick. Any takers who feel confident in explaining this? Hezian, can you unmute, please?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Thematic topic is like what.
If you need support, Kazi, I will go over that again. Celise, I see your question. If you are good, then get out of here. If you need me to go over it again, I will. Celise, to answer your question, characterizing is using those adjectives that people were brainstorming earlier. It's saying, because of the way your homework today, that's why we brainstormed thematic topics in the meet today.
Hezian, listen, I miss you, but keep your hate with Miss Hurley's hate. If you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping.
What about, okay, 1, why did you say, what? 2.
Oh, what? Ramaya, you decide to come to school one day out of the last 10 days and now you got jokes?
It's okay, she was roasting me earlier because I was
Welcome back to school, Ramaya.
I don't miss.
Yes, you do, Kazi.
All right, y'all. It's 9:29. Go to social studies. I love you. Goodbye. Get out of here.
That's not that much money, Kazi. They ain't here.
I'm checking before. Can you just? All right, Richard, Ayana, I'm removing you so you can get to social studies.